Oh, I'm Mark Owen from Kirklees Visual Impairment Network. I'm joined by Phil, and we're going to discuss life under lockdown. Hello, Phil.
Hello.
Thanks very much for joining us and for taking part in this. So firstly, just wanted to get a little bit of understanding really of what the coronavirus has meant for you in terms of your everyday life.
When I suppose really we start when we went into lockdown. I was very lucky, I was very fortunate to live with my partner who can see. So I didn't have the same problems that a lot of visually impaired people had. I didn't have to worry about going shopping or getting shopping delivered. She did all that. So that took a lot of stress away from me that other people would have experienced. I did go into the shop occasionally, into a supermarket when we were out for our what we called our daily allowed walk, which is what we got for an hour about a day, exercise we were told we could go out for. But that was about it. I didn't have to go in on my own, and that really took away a lot of worry, really. I suppose it was my social life that changed, like everybody's. And that started just before lockdown. But I think the first thing to go was football. I'm a season ticket holder at Huddersfield Town. All the matches were cancelled in the middle of March. And then we were told we couldn't go out to restaurants and pubs. And the week after that, it was full lockdown. And everything then became WhatsApp and Zoom.
So you've been a volunteer with KVIN for a long period of time. What sort of work was it that you've been doing with KVIN prior to lockdown then?
I taught a few people how to use iPhones and iPads. I guess it's the same thing. We didn't really cover iPads, but it's the same theory. And I also taught touch typing, or what I probably would call keyboard skills, really. I learnt to type in the old days when it was a typewriter and you didn't really know if you couldn't see what you typed. It could have been any old rubbish. Fortunately, when I typed, it wasn't total rubbish. But now we use keyboards to either link to our iPhones or computers. And it's a skill that I think sighted people, they just look at the keyboard and they probably type with two fingers a lot of the time. When you lose your sight, you really have to be a little bit more skillful than that and actually learn how the keyboard is set out and which fingers to use so that you're hitting the right letters in the right order. So that's the two things that I really taught. I used to come into KVIN in Huddersfield on a Friday morning, and it was quite a social occasion as well. I think perhaps people didn't really want to be learning on a Friday the same way as maybe on a Wednesday and a Thursday. So there were some weeks when I didn't have anyone to teach. So it was a case of having a chat and a coffee and exchanging information.
So lockdown happened. You've already mentioned things like the world moving to Zoom. How did that work with KVIN then? And so how did what you do and did with KVIN change?
Well, everything became Zoom, really. I think the WhatsApp group started perhaps just before, and or for me it did. I think there were WhatsApp groups before that. I tend not to be a big social media person, so I think the virus and the situation pushed me into it a little bit more. And to start with, it was the Zoom was a social thing, really. We met 3 days a week, or there was the opportunity to meet 3 days a week on Zoom. I don't join all of them, but it was initially a case of exchanging. I think a lot of the time it was when people were going to get a delivery from Tesco or Sainsbury's, but that was valuable because people were learning which supermarkets were delivering and what other facilities were available. And then we moved on gradually to having guest speakers on Zoom from various companies that supply technology. And we also had discussions on various things as well in breakout groups. And we split the group into two, and some people just have a chat socially, and others would talk about a specific topic. And I know I attended one on technology, and then I led one on banking as well, and how visually impaired people do the banking and how that's changed as we're being forced to do more online.
So that was really key then, in the sense that from being a volunteer who had supported people in a face-to-face setting, you were able to move to actually support volunteers practically as part of the Zoom sessions as well.
Yeah, well, I hope it was useful. I think it was, and I think everyone learned a bit of something from other people just by discussing it.
And how have you found it yourself in terms of using Zoom? Was it something that was easy to?
Yeah, I use it a lot with KVIN, but also I'm in two other groups which use Zoom. One's a social club, which obviously we can't meet each other now. We used to go for meals, walking to the theatre, and all that's gone. So we meet every week on Zoom. We have our committee meetings on Zoom. And I'm also in our local community group, which uses Zoom for singing, which was very interesting to start with. I think we've found a way now.
Yes,
we all mute ourselves and listen to one person playing an instrument. So yeah, it's been a big part of life in the last 6 or 7 months of Zoom.
Yeah. So things have changed beyond all recognition, but nonetheless, we're still going forward in a positive way. Phil, thank you very much for joining us and giving us your insight into life under lockdown.
No problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.